After yet another P3 and P4 finish, Mercedes are looking to finally bounce back to the top step of the podium at the Paul Ricard circuit for the French Grand Prix. It's looking more and more likely that Mercedes have finally overcome some of the major setbacks that the initial W13 design left them with. And it's possible we could see a Mercedes win very soon due to the super smooth characteristics of the track in France. Do you think Mercedes will be able to win the race in France? Comment your thoughts down below. So let's analyze Mercedes' season so far. Few would have predicted that Mercedes would be halfway through the season with a best finish of third and barely a cent of victory. The Silver Arrows, who have been extraordinarily strong over the past 10 years, constructed a car using the brand new regulations that appears to have some serious problems. Because of its level of bouncing, the team has been chasing its tail while attempting to solve its issues. With 7 podium places from 11 races, including third in the last 4 Grand Prix, the team has amazingly managed to finish a racing weekend on the podium more frequently than not, thus far giving the performance of their car, compared to the 14 podiums for Red Bull and 11 for Ferrari, including victories. The title contenders' disrupted season is largely to blame for all of this. Due to repeated DNFs for both Ferrari and Red Bull, a regular race for 5th has often evolved into a podium race, which Mercedes is now winning. In fact, while Mercedes has been taking up podiums that their pace hasn't necessarily warranted due to their bulletproof reliability, it's also underlined another peculiarity of 2022. Only Lando Norris has secured a podium outside of the top 6 this year, with his performance at Imola, Mercedes' most absent race of the season. The podium positions were far more open at this time last year, when Norris had 3 podium finishes in the first 11 Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly and Sebastian Vettel each had 1, and Esteban Ocon had already taken his first victory in Budapest. All this despite the fact that the leaders have encountered problems more frequently this year than last. Mercedes' metronomic victory in the competition for best of the rest has made all the difference, effectively creating a barrier between the lead battle and the tenacious midfielders. However, there are now indications that they are taking control of the situation and moving back in the direction of being legitimate front-runners. In Barcelona, the team claimed that they understood the car better thanks to George Russell's brief lead and Lewis Hamilton's quick recovery from a puncture on lap 1. Mercedes made just a little amount of observable progress from where they had been before Catalonia in the races that followed in Monaco, Baku and Montreal, making it difficult to evaluate whether the Spanish Grand Prix pace was a passing trend or evidence of real advancement. The fact that those circuits are street circuits, which are by their very nature rough and abrasive, clouds the image and highlights the shortcomings of the unpleasant ride of the Mercedes. The team appeared to have a chance to win again with Hamilton when they were back on a traditional racetrack at Silverstone and had made a number of upgrades, but it was obviously aided by the damage that prevented Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc from competing. Austria wasn't supposed to be as strong, and it wasn't, but a rare pair of driver blunders by Hamilton and Russell in qualifying were primarily to blame for that. Russell had a snap later into turn 10 and damaged his rear wing, forcing him to run an earlier spec, dragging apart through the rest of the weekend. Hamilton was set for a lap to challenge the leading couple of rows in Q3 until losing the rear at turn 7 and hitting the barrier. Because of this, it's better to look at Hamilton's race performance to determine the real pace of the Mercedes in Austria. On Sunday, after the 7-time champion found clear air, it appeared to be a reasonably near match to Charles Leclerc's dominant Ferrari. He was able to overcut several midfielders because of this. Following Hamilton's 3rd place result and Russell's 4th place finish, with a penalty for contact with Sergio Perez at the start, Wolff said, "It's just that we're missing a few tenths here and there. I think we've halved the gap over the last few months. We understand better, but we're still 3rd, 4th. We're somewhere right in the middle of nowhere." But I would say if I tried to pick the positives, in race pace today, if we would have, which we didn't, started right in the top 6, probably we could have held on to Max Verstappen and not been so far away. For sure, the qualifying crashes didn't help, because even though you can start the car up and measure the car, it puts you on the wrong foot straight from the get-go. So we didn't expect to be really competitive here because of the nature of the track. It wasn't a happy place for us in the past, so I'm okay. We just need to continue to grind away. Could Mercedes have been closer to the front if the qualifying crashes didn't happen? Or could they have even competed for the win due to the setbacks of both Ferrari and Red Bull during the race? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up is the French Grand Prix, which features one of the smoothest circuits with a predominance of medium and fast turns. Mercedes has historically performed well there, and it unquestionably presents their best opportunity to contend for a victory on the merits so far this year. Will they finally win a race again? After all, Hamilton will be on the hunt for it, as he's right now enjoying his longest racing spell without a win in his entire career. Hamilton will be looking to break this spell by winning at the Paul Ricard circuit. But before he'll be able to, they have another problem they must mitigate. Because right now, they have an issue with their qualifying form. 3 times so far this season, it has appeared as though they would have the speed to contend for a victory. But in each case, Hamilton has been on recovery drives rather than assuming the lead. Russell was in the lead in Spain, while Hamilton was struggling as a result of a lap 1 collision with Kevin Magnussen, despite Hamilton appearing to have the faster car that day. Lewis was quick at Silverstone, but Mercedes disappointed in qualifying and then had to restart after a strong first launch, dropping Hamilton to 6th for a brief period of time, while Russell retired following the significant lap 1 collision. Again in Austria, collision on the opening lap eliminated Russell from podium contention, and Hamilton had too much to do to make a difference at the front of the race after the qualification crash and mediocre sprint. The Mercedes race pace has been noticeably faster so far than their qualifying performance. They must demonstrate good one-lap speed on Saturday if they want to have a chance of winning on Sunday in France. It's one thing to have race pace to keep up with the leaders, but when you give up as much track position as they are currently, it will always be difficult to win, and that is what has cost them in the last few races. But Mercedes are expected to pick the pace back up in France, where long straights and a smooth surface should temper some of the negatives of the W13 and help both drivers pick up the pace. Paul Ricard should be okay, continued Wolff. It's a smooth circuit, little bit like Silverstone, fast corners, and on paper at least, it looks like we can have a good performance there. We are starting to see we're chipping away performance from the leaders, which is good, but we find ourselves in a situation which we have always discussed, which is one day, after 8 consecutive titles, that series is going to break and we want to make it a blip and not some kind of long cycle. For a large portion of the season's beginning, Mercedes had issues with porpoising on the W13. Wolff believes that this is no longer a problem and that the further temps the team needs to gain are entirely the result of performance. I think it's pure performance, the team boss explained. The porpoising I think we got on top of. I think if we were to go back to Monaco and to Baku, we wouldn't be great, but for sure we would not have the problems that we've seen a few weeks ago. It looks like Mercedes are going to be the dark horse for a victory at the Paul Ricard circuit. If they can nail their Saturday, that could be set for a fun Sunday. Let's not forget that it's highly likely that Carlos Sainz will take a new engine after his last one exploded in Austria, so that could free up a spot at the front of the grid for the start of the race. So if Mercedes are able to nail qualifying and end up P4 and P5 or even higher, there is a high chance of finally really competing for the win, just like Lewis could do back in Silverstone. Mercedes are finally able to reap the rewards of all their hard work and upgrades. And let's not forget that their car is highly reliable, which has delivered them a lot of points. So they are only 66 points behind Ferrari in P2 of the Constructors' Championship and 122 points behind Red Bull. We wouldn't go as far to say as they are championship contenders, but if they've finally gotten on top of their car, they might be able to close the gap in the next half of the season. Do you think Mercedes will be able to compete for wins in the next races? Let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to stay updated with our content.